welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who is currently riding a rad wave. It's John Levingood.
Surfboards were not made for me, man. I need those super long boards. That way it's easier for me to balance and it can take my weight.
You need a paddleboard to surf on.
I need one of those boards that you see like on TV or on magazine covers where it's the dude with like 6 of his dogs all on the board, those super long boards on the wave. But I need the dogs not because it looks cool and hard, but because they help stabilize the weight of it and keep me from going.
So the dogs are doing all the work.
Right.
Oh, I love it. I gotta tell you, so Escape from L.A., it was released in 96. Oh, and also, man, this is our 300th episode.
300 and just 275 we did Escape from New York.
Yeah, now we're doing Escape. Every 25th episode or in between, we'll do a Kurt Russell movie. And when I watched this movie in 96, I was jazzed, dude. I was 14. I think either my mom bought me a ticket and dropped me off, or they just let me, because I was there enough, they sold me a ticket. I went to go watch it, and I was already a big fan of Kurt Russell. You know, I was a huge fan of, like all the Stargate, Backdraft, all those movies. Captain Ron, I just adored all those movies. And watching this was kind of a weird thing for me, because at 14, I wasn't quite picking up on the whole satire of it all. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't, the vibe, the cheeky vibe didn't set in with me. And it's quite violent in the beginning when they're throwing knives into people. Those plastic surgeon people in Beverly Hills kind of freak me out. And I ended up really liking it, but I remember going basketball and just a few other out there bonkers ideas. But then the more I think about L.A. and the more I've been reading about it, New York's huge, basketball's huge in New York, but in L.A. you got the Lakers, you got the Clippers, you got the big basketball scene, you have the surfing. Like, I feel like they tried to throw in a lot of what makes there's a scene at the end where, like, man, that traffic's a bitch. It's going to take us like 2 hours to get there. So they have to hang glide because traffic's so bad. So there's so many little in-jokes in there that I didn't pick up on. And also, this movie was $50 million in 96. And that's a big budget. And I think I like it. I think it looks better now because it feels more retro than it did in 96 when Independence Day was being released. And this was kind of dumped in August. But I don't know. How has this movie evolved for you? I know we're jumping right into it, but this
is really weird. So in 275, remember I had reflected how I had thought that I had seen Escape from New York like a dozen times, when really I had seen bits and pieces of it a whole lot, and I was merging Escape from L.A. and Escape from New York in my memory, even though I know they're two different movies. And what's funny also is, having watched it recently, there are things about it where I swear to God, this movie feels like it was made earlier than 96.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right? A lot of the scenes, the hang gliding action scene, just the way that they kind of forced that to work. I didn't notice that it didn't seem so crisp back then. But now I watch it, I'm like, this scene, it looks like they absolutely did not have enough money for what they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I guess in my life, in like the last 20 some years, I'm seeing clips or bits, folding laundry or flipping through the stations, but while I'm pre-gaming with some friends in college, when I come home from a bar and I fall asleep watching something, when it's a lazy Sunday afternoon, you pick up a movie halfway through. I feel like most of the time I was probably actually picking up Escape from L.A. and crossing it with New York. And so now that I've watched Escape from L.A. 2 times start to finish in the last week, I'm realizing that my memory of Escape from New York really was a scene for scene kind of grab bag of both movies. Mm-hmm. I remember Escape from L.A. having a basketball scene. I remember Escape from L.A. having the submarine to get to the island. But I remember Escape from L.A. I'm sorry, New York. New York for both of these. I remember Escape from New York having a basketball scene, which it didn't have. I remember Escape from New York having the submarine, which it didn't have. But I remember Escape from New York having Stacy Keach, which is funny because even though I know this is 96, I'm like, he looks young. I can see why I made that mistake so many times, even though I'm later seeing him in like, other movies older. So this was really interesting to me. I feel like I haven't seen start to finish Escape from L.A. since within 5 years of it came out. I've seen a lot of pieces of it. So this was interesting for me. Like, my relationship with this movie isn't what I always thought it was. It was always kind of a lie, a happy lie, merging the two movies. It's so weird, man. But yeah, so I don't know. You say something, 'cause I'm just starting to short circuit.
I was going to jump in, but I thought you had something there. What I think is interesting is Escape from New York didn't have that much of a budget. So remember how we said they had to location scout and find the most rundown area possible, and that's when they shot in St. Louis, and that added an interesting level of authenticity to it. But with this movie, they shot 70 nights, days of nights, which would... I've talked about night shoots on the podcast before, and the most I've ever done in one sitting was 2 weeks, and that almost killed me. I can't do this again. But this one did 70 nights, and it had a much larger budget. So they filmed this in California on backlots, and they spent a lot of money to recreate the production design that they paid nothing for in Escape from New York, which is interesting. I mean, they would take 200 cars and just dump them in areas. They would just sort of throw trash on backlots. And I think they purposely made it look like a B movie, which, I mean, okay, you're John Carpenter and you're Kurt Russell and you're Deborah Hill. You write this thing, you produce it. You're kind of making a lot of jokes about L.A., the artifice, the Beverly Hills. It's kind of satirical. I mean, just a lot of the in-jokes and all that. I mean, I 100% get their idea, and I like this movie, but I don't know if it was the best idea for 96, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, there were some other weird things about it, too, and that's that, New York, not a big budget. L.A., much bigger budget. But New York, these big shots they had on the empty streets with all that debris they put out there, I felt the scale of New York. And they weren't telling us venues. We just saw him go through these vast streets, right? Mm-hmm. Or driving down this long bridge, a long shot of the bridge, right? So I felt the size of this apocalypse that he was navigating. L.A., much bigger budget. But clearly all of it was sourced for effects.
Yeah.
Because all of the sets, all the motorcycle shots were pretty close. You just see a motorcycle and a car or two cars. You never see this long sweeping shot, a long cinescape of land. You don't see
the train yard from New York. Remember the scale of that?
Right. And so, and even when they're hang gliding, it's all close up shots. The action, the chases are all close-up shots. The most broad shot we get in this movie that isn't CGI is of the stadium with the basketball court. Mm-hmm. But all the other things, it seems very tight. And I had to be told Sunset Boulevard, Beverly Hills. I had to be told where he was going to understand he was crossing long distances. And I never felt the scale of the apocalypse that was this LA island. So it's interesting. Now, of course, the action was much better. And my original criticism of New York is that it's all atmosphere and sets and characters and very little, I don't want to use the word weak, but very little action because of the budget just didn't go in that direction. And this one, it all went there. So I felt, like you said, you almost make it look like a B movie. We're just doing the absolute most that we can, maybe to such extent that we pushed it too far. Again, I'm going to say hang gliding fight scene. But so this was more fun to watch. I feel like I'm less inclined to watch it again as soon. But then again, if someone's just around, want to watch something dumb and fun over a six pack, not dumb, but something fun over a six pack, I'd say this. Someone wants to see a Carpenter film they haven't seen. Okay, New York.
Yeah. And this one's it breezes by. I mean, it's what, 95 minutes? It's 100 minutes, but 95 minutes with credits. It shoots by. I kind of like how he has a lot less time in this one. It's like 8 hours as opposed to 20 plus hours. So I dig that. I like the urgency of this one because once he gets to LA, aside from when he gets kidnapped and a couple conversations at the Beverly Hills place, it moves quick. I guess what I like about this too is that some people have said that Snake Plissken isn't good at what he does, but he has no time for planning. He sees a motorcade of cars. He's like, I don't have much time. I'm going to go get it. He just has to move. And I kind of that's one thing I liked about this film is just the amount of urgency he has.
Like he is a gunfighter and, well, at least one time a bank robber that we know of, mm-hmm. who is being put in these infiltration, recon, and rescue missions. This is not a skill set he has.
Yeah.
His skill set is that he has balls that probably don't fit in his leather pants.
That still fit him from the last movie. His original outfit still fit him, which I love.
When we first saw him, my first question that I wrote down here was, how old is that leather jacket?
Yeah. He's been wearing, oh yeah, I mean, at least, 96 and then 79? Yeah, that's an old jacket right there.
Right.
Hey, you buy it well. But also, one thing too I like about this version of Snake Plissken is, I like when he's in the submarine and Stacy Keach. It's like, slow down, hotshot. And he's like, you slow down, dickhead. I'm the one dying. And there's a scene where this guy comes out to, have words with him and he just shoots him. He has this Bangkok rules gunfight with these henchmen who actually stick to the rules and he cheats. I like his lying. Like he just lies to everybody and uses them to kind of get what he wants. But I don't know, I just love just his style. It's different in this one. It's more jaded, I guess, more bloodthirsty. But he murders folks in this. I mean, that guy was going to try to throw a knife at him, but he has wanton regard for no regard for life.
I was baffled by one thing, and I guess it's just, a screenwriting ploy, but he had every chance to kill Cuervo at about 70 minutes into the movie, and he just grabbed the case and ran.
Yeah.
And I'm like, with all of his other killing that he's doing, what? This makes sense. It would have taken an extra second. Cuervo was on the ground. He manhandled Cuervo. In hand-to-hand combat, he manhandled him.
Yeah. And Cuervo just had the knife.
Hits.
Yeah,
it was a hit. It was a brawl and all, but that was like 5 hits to 1 for Snake.
I loved watching the extras run around in the background during their fight while the hang gliders were dropping grenades on them.
I have a question, because you criticized this a lot. Did they know what to do with their arms?
Well, yeah, they actually looked... The extras weren't bad in this movie. They were authentic. But it was just funny watching people run around the background with no bombs going off. It was just kind of extras sprinting everywhere.
Like they're just running from point A to point. It's like one of those shoot 'em up games where it just gives you multiple opportunities to shoot at them in a first-person shooter.
And also, one thing too is, I don't remember that article I wrote, a few years ago about 4 years ago, about the bonkers, how it's like a brilliant bonkers film.
Right, like 5 reasons why Escape from L.A. is bonkers brilliance or something.
And I still kind of a bonkers masterpiece. And that may seem like hyperbole, but I love in this movie, though, how Snake is on a treadmill, he plays basketball, he surfs, he's on a motorcycle, he's in a hang glider, he's in a submarine. He lands his hang glider perfectly on Cuervo Jones. His basketball scene, no one had ever won it. He really drilled that shot. I love seeing Bruce Campbell in here. And Bruce Campbell's one of my favorites, seeing him, but it's just such I love the Big Trouble in Little China reunion with all the guys from the gangs.
I even wrote down how many of those guys in Hershey's squad were from Big Trouble. I feel like it's at least 3.
Yep. So Stuart Kwan, James Liu,
Al Young,
Leo Lee, and Gary Toy and Al Young pop up. And it was the Chang Seng and the Wing Kong uniting to help in Snake. So both sides of the gangs helped him out. But I guess I think this happens to me, John, is I get very defensive sometimes when I feel, and this isn't right because it's objective, but I think a lot of people missed the point of this movie. And I don't know if the point is right or wrong what Carpenter did, but it's purposely cheeky, man. When Snake is surfing, there's surf music playing. Like, this movie is tongue in cheek. This is not, you know what I mean? This is not I
feel like they did what A Knight's Tale did.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how a lot of people are like, that's so stupid, these songs didn't exist? It's like everybody involved in the film knows that these songs didn't exist in medieval times.
What, Bowie? Bowie didn't exist back then?
Right. It's like, but that was a cool, that was like one of the cool songs that your parents listened to, that you got into when you were a teenager, when that came out in like 2000 or 2001. Like, that made sense to include that. Makes sense to include these fun songs. It's stylish. They're not trying to make high